You might be shocked to hear that around 48 million Americans get food poisoning every year, and over 3,000 of them die from it. A lot of those fatalities involve older people because their immune systems aren't as strong as they used to be. According to the CDC, seniors are at a much higher risk. It's pretty alarming that many of these illnesses start in our fridges. You might be surprised to find out that some everyday meals could actually be turning into health hazards because of how you're storing them. The fridge is that trusty appliance you rely on to keep your food safe. If you liked this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more health tips. Recent studies have shown that improperly storing certain foods in the fridge can cause harmful chemical reactions, nutrient loss, and even food poisoning. What's even scarier is that many people don't even realize it. You could be putting your health at risk by mindlessly stashing certain fruits, veggies, or pantry staples in there. It's especially concerning when it comes to. First up on the list is something you might want to think twice about. When it cools down, not only does it lose its nutrients, but it also starts to create some unhealthy chemicals. If you're curious about things that could really improve your health, or even save your life, you should definitely read this whole article. And hey, if you enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more great content. Also, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Alright, let's dive in. Coming in at number 9 is the trusty potato, a classic that most people keep in their fridge. Without even thinking twice, let's talk about a kitchen staple, the potato. But here's the surprising truth. Storing raw potatoes in the fridge can actually be risky. When they're kept cold, something sneaky happens at a cellular level. The starch in the potatoes turns into sugar way too quickly. At first, this might not sound too serious, but here, where it gets a bit concerning, when you cook or bake these refrigerated potatoes at high temperatures, the sugars can react with amino acids. Acrylamide is a chemical linked to cancer in animals, and researchers are looking into how it might affect humans too. But there's more to it. When you store potatoes in the fridge, they can lose nutrients and get weird textures, turning gritty, mushy, and often discolored. Instead of being that delicious, hearty dish everyone loves, refrigerated potatoes can end up as a soggy, sweet mess that's not great for cooking. If you've ever seen your roasted potatoes come out looking off, that's probably why. If your potatoes taste weird or feel off, it might be because of your fridge. Keep them out of sunlight and moisture. Instead, find a cool, dark, and dry place for them. That way they'll stay firm, tasty, and safe to eat. Now's the time to take any potatoes out of the fridge before they turn into a dinner hazard. And then there's bread, number 8 on our list. It's a staple that many older folks always keep around because it's comforting and important. But putting bread in the fridge. You might think that putting bread in the fridge will help it stay fresh longer, but it's actually the opposite. Retrogradation is the scientific term for what happens when the starch in bread starts to crystallize in cold temperatures. Basically, this means that the bread goes stale faster in the fridge than if you just leave it out at room temperature. So yeah, it's true, refrigerating your light, airy bread will make it go stale quicker. It doesn't stay fresh in the fridge. It goes stale pretty quickly, and while you might not notice it right away, you can definitely taste the difference. Toasted stuff like sandwiches just aren't as good anymore because they get all rough, dry, and crumbly. And it gets worse. Bread is basically a mold playground when it dries out in the fridge. The damp, uneven conditions when you take food out of the fridge and heat it up again are perfect for mold to grow. Eating moldy bread is not a good idea, especially for older folks with weaker immune systems. Those toxins from mold can really mess you up. If you want your bread to stay fresh longer, just freeze it. Freezing keeps it from getting moldy or stale without ruining the texture. Slice it before you freeze it and just thaw out what you need later. And as for the fridge, don't even consider putting your bread in there. Store your bread in an airtight container or bread box at room temperature for a few days. After that, pop it in the freezer. Stay cozy and keep yourself and your bread warm. Now about onions. Putting them in the fridge is a common mistake that can lead to unexpected problems, so don't be surprised to see it mentioned here. The onion's papery skin helps keep moisture out, preserves its flavor, and maintains its firmness. But when you put onions in the fridge, that balance gets all messed up. When you chop up onions, they soak up moisture really fast because of the cold and humidity in the fridge. This usually leads to mold, a bad taste, and a mushy texture. But the bigger issue is the smell. When you put onions in the fridge, they release sulfur compounds that break them down quicker and can even seep into nearby food. They're super stinky too. Have you ever thought about how onions might be lurking in your fruit or butter? That's not just your imagination. In the fridge, if they are airtight and consumed soon, preferably within a day or two, that will lead to food going bad, nutrients going out the window, and an unsavory fridge full of surprises with an onion flavor. Tomatoes number 6. When it comes to keeping perishable foods, fresh tomatoes may be the most misunderstood fruit. The common belief is that storing tomatoes in the fridge will extend their freshness, but in reality, cold temperatures ruin the texture and flavor of tomatoes, according to science. Are tropical fruits that suffer greatly from chilly temperatures. Refrigerating tomatoes stops them from ripening because the cold air disrupts their natural enzymes. A lot of the tomato's flavor actually comes from when it ripens. If you don't have it, the fruit will be mealy, watery, and tasteless. The texture is also important to consider. Refrigerated tomatoes become mushy and rubbery. After losing their firmness, nothing remains of the fresh tomato's characteristic bite and juicy burst. The impact on nutrients is considerably more worrisome. The vitamin C in tomatoes is healthy for you, but it goes bad quickly in cold storage, so eating them too soon may ruin their flavor and health advantages. When exposed to prolonged cold, even the skin begins to shrivel and wrinkle, making what is otherwise a very young object look ancient and unappealing. The tomato has probably been chilled if you've ever cut into it and found it watery or bland. To keep tomatoes fresh for longer, place them stems side down, keep them at room temperature, and keep them out of direct sunlight. Use them right away or boil them if they're too ripe. Don't be a hero and put them in the fridge. Actually, all you're doing is hastening their demise. Many consider garlic a superfood because of the sulfur compounds it contains, such as allantoin, which aid in immune system support and blood pressure reduction. However, if you keep garlic in the fridge, its great health advantages will either soon go away or perhaps become dangerous. Garlic bulbs can be stored at room temperature for several weeks or months if kept in a dry, cool, and well-ventilated place. However, the natural preservation of garlic is compromised when stored in the refrigerator due to the moisture and cold temperature. Premature sprouting of the cloves alters their flavor and indicates a change in their chemical composition. Something harsh and rubbery replaces that sharp and tasty punch. Worse, the allicin, the active ingredient in garlic that gives it its health benefits, is mostly lost. When the garlic is sprouted now, we get to the most terrifying part. Garlic, particularly minced or chopped garlic, kept in oil, can harbor the botulism-causing Clostridium botulinum bacterium if left in the fridge for an extended period of time. If this rare disease is not treated quickly, it can cause paralysis or even death. Many individuals continue to do this despite FDA warnings about the dangers of storing garlic in oil. Without acid or refrigeration protections, garlic doesn't need freezing. Just store the bulb whole in a basket or mesh bag to prevent bacteria growth. Use chopped garlic right away and store it in a vinegar or lemon juice basis. However, you shouldn't leave your garlic sit in the fridge unripe or unprotected if you want to keep it fresh. Count for a cup of coffee. You heard it right, coffee is on this list. And there's a solid reason for it. Coffee grinds and beans are very light smell and moisture sensitive. Putting them in the fridge gives the impression that you're keeping them fresh, but in reality, you're only preparing them for a quick demise. Coffee, like a sponge, soaks up moisture and aromas from its surroundings. Because it is hygroscopic, as soon as coffee is placed in the refrigerator, it begins to absorb the fragrances and flavors of the produce and leftovers that surround it. Your beans' individual flavor profiles will be utterly ruined, and the resulting brew will be bland, harsh, or otherwise bizarre. However, taste is only one consideration. The true adversary in this case is moisture. Condensation forms on coffee beans or grounds Whenever the refrigerator door is opened and closed, due to the combination of the cold air and humidity within this, causes the important oils like chlorogenic acids that give coffee its flavor and health, advantages to break down, which in turn causes clumping and premature staling. These acids break down more quickly in cold, wet environments, but they are antioxidants that help keep the heart and brain healthy. Cold coffee loses its flavor. Any health benefits it may have as it ages plus mold can form on wet coffee grounds, particularly if the container isn't airtight. Put your coffee in a dark cupboard tightly in an opaque container and let it sit at room temperature. Instead of in the fridge, it retains its freshness, flavor, and safety in this way. The third one, my darling, this one could catch you off guard. It has a golden hue, is thick, and has a pleasant taste. It also looks at home in the fridge. Honey, on the other hand, doesn't fare well when kept in the fridge. Indeed, putting honey in the fridge does more than just destroy its texture. It also entirely undoes the natural preservation mechanism that allows honey to remain edible indefinitely. Cold temperatures lead honey to crystallize quickly. When stored in the refrigerator, it becomes extremely hard, gritty, and nearly impossible to spread or scoop. As a result, it's just a change in texture, you would say. Not exactly. When a container is opened and reopened several times during the crystallization process, air pockets might be trapped, allowing moisture to enter. Honey is not a fan of damp conditions. It can cause fermentation, which results in a sour aroma and flavor in your honey. To make matters worse, moisture promotes the growth of microbes, a problem that honey often avoids due to its high acidity and low water content. However, its natural defenses are compromised when kept incorrectly. Additionally, honey's antibacterial effects are aided by its natural enzymes, which are slowed down by cold temperatures. Keeping honey in the fridge can reduce its health benefits. Thus, the answer is yes, store honey in an airtight container in a cool, dark place, out of direct sunlight and excessive temperatures. This ensures that the time-tested medicinal properties like its silky texture, natural flavor, and all of its restorative components remain intact. Rank 2, fresh bananas. Because of their high potassium content and low digestion, bananas are a go-to fruit for many people, including seniors, but chilling bananas is a surefire way to ruin their wonderful qualities. The chemistry of bananas is designed to withstand warm climates, making them tropical fruits. Putting them in the fridge, particularly before they're completely ripe, causes the ripening enzymes to shut down. Your bananas might never reach their full ripeness. Because of that, the worst part is that they will remain hard, have no flavor, and have their skin change to a dull gray or black color very fast. Not only is this discoloration unsightly, but it also indicates the presence of cold injury. Beneath that blackened exterior, the banana frequently becomes mushy in strange places and acquires a disagreeable metallic taste. Bananas are delicious and visually appealing, but they also lose some of their natural antioxidants. When they are refrigerated, these antioxidants, particularly catechins and dopamine, are crucial for maintaining brain health and lowering oxidative stress in cells that are exposed to age. Tossing bananas in the fridge removes those chemicals which are really vital for elders without anyone realizing. The accumulation of moisture within the skin, particularly around the stem area, can foster the growth of mold, which is an even more problematic situation if the banana is already overripe. When placed in the refrigerator, therefore, you run the danger of mold exposure. Rather than extending shelf life to keep bananas ripe and juicy, store them in an airtight container, or better yet, hang them from a hook. Freeze peeled bananas in a container for later use in smoothies or baking if you find yourself with an abundance of ripe bananas. But in the interest of their longevity, please do not freeze them. The fruit's nutritional value, texture, and original function will all be compromised. Olive oil comes out on top. Despite its various uses and reputation as a hearth-healthy staple, olive oil is really the most harmful product to keep in the fridge, particularly for the elderly. Olive oil turns murky and semi-solid when kept in the fridge because of a process called solidification, in which the fatty acids crystallize. While there's nothing intrinsically bad about this physical shift, few seniors comprehend the major health issues caused by the repeated temperature swings from putting the oil in and out of the refrigerator. The chemical structure of olive oil is stressed every time it travels from cold to warm, which speeds up the oxidation process, which in turn can create free radicals and reduce the oil's antioxidant benefits. These oxidative alterations have the potential to convert oil that is good for the heart into one that may actually make things worse for seniors by increasing inflammation. Worryingly, research suggests that these oils, which are already common in older persons, may exacerbate inflammation in the joints and gastrointestinal irritation. Due to the high temperatures they were exposed to, the oil becomes more difficult to pour due to solidification, which raises the possibility of spillage or overuse and adds extra calories to the diets of seniors. In addition to the obvious health risks, eating cold olive oil drastically alters the flavor profile, eliminating the pleasant fruity and peppery undertones that are characteristic of the hearth-healthy Mediterranean diet. Instead, keep olive oil in a sealed metal or dark glass container out of direct sunlight and away from stoves and other heat sources when kept in the right conditions. Premium olive oil can keep its flavor and health advantages for as long as 2 years after bottling. That wraps up our list of 9 foods that should never be kept in the fridge. Sorting your food storage by category is a good place to start. Avoid refrigerating avocados and bananas until they reach the ideal ripeness point. Onions and potatoes do better when stored in cool, dark settings rather than damp, cold ones. Never refrigerate bread. It's best served at room temperature or frozen. Put the honey in the pantry and the coffee in a dark, airtight jar. Tomatillo sauce with garlic. Be respectful of them because they are potent, all-natural compounds. Properly storing them will ensure that their flavor and health advantages remain intact. It is time for you to speak up. Is the danger of storing these foods in the fridge something you've been oblivious to immediately? What are you going to do differently? Leave a comment below and tell us about yourself and your thoughts. Please share them with us. Much obliged for your time. It is. But when you put onions in the fridge, that balance gets all messed up. When you chop up onions, they soak up moisture really fast because of the cold and humidity in the fridge. This usually leads to mold, a bad taste, and a mushy texture. But the bigger issue is the smell. When you put onions in the fridge, they release sulfur compounds that break them down quicker and can even seep into nearby food. They're super stinky too. Have you ever thought about how onions might be lurking in your fruit or butter? That's not just your imagination.